Hi, everybody. My name is Allison Galindo, and this morning my husband prayed for me on his way to work. And he prayed that I would just hear from God this morning through the word. And today I read Exodus 14, and God gave me a word that I believe is to be shared. And this is what I want to read to you today that he wrote through me. It's called Footprints Unseen. In Exodus 14, we read about the God who saved Israel from the hands of their enemies, the Egyptians. Israel took a step of fearful obedience to follow God's voice when he told them to leave the land of their enemies. Truly, they did not recognize that obedience would send them through a period of drought, desertion, and seemingly emptiness. For many, they felt this effort to trust and believe God was not worth the wilderness they would go through. Many wished to just have stayed enslaved by their enemies due to the impatience, a lack of faith in their mighty Redeemer, and years spent growing used to bondage. But Moses, a great leader and servant of God, led the Israeli people out of Egypt and into their future wilderness. The journey was long, strenuous, and trying in every way, but the God who loved them was leading them. In a turning point, years passed from when the journey to escape their enemies had started. God commanded them to turn around and position themselves where their enemies could see them. This was out of the question for many, and Israel trembled in their faithfulness. Their enemies were enthralled, and God even more so hardened their hearts to pursue his own beloved people with enmity and the agenda to entrap them again. Israel began to lose even more faith in God, doubting his faithfulness and protection. But God initiated Moses to lift up his staff above the sea they were standing before, so that he could part the great waters before them. The host who was always before Israel stood behind Israel as they took steps of fearful faith into the path created for them through the sea. Egypt, with every weapon they had and determination enough to drive them into the sea after them, pursued the people of Israel. Yet the night was long for both. It was God who kept the sea divided for Israel and who shut the waters to swallow up their evil-minded enemies. Not one of Israel's enemies were spared, but were, in the morning, swept up on the seashore, dead and victoriousless. When an individual makes a decision to accept the God of Israel into their hearts, they are accepting his surpassing knowledge and understanding for their lives as well. Yet when God allows trials to enter their life, the decision to accept God's extensive will becomes a task of choice. As princes and princesses of divine royalty, we too must undergo the battles of life between the principalities and powers of the heavenly realm. We too cannot run from trial, but have to make a choice to accept the will of God, even if it is out of fearful faith, because the people of Israel demonstrated that even the faithful can be fearful. God might send us to do a job or to make a change in our lives that is hard. He might send us to stand in the gap for people who are doubting him. He might even send our enemies to pursue us in determination of hatred. But he says, "The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." It was God who helped Israel in their wilderness, gave them enough food and water to stay alive, and was sufficient in their years of silence from him. It was God who gave Moses the love and strength required to lead them faithfully through the dry land and deep waters. It was God who masterfully orchestrated the enemies of Israel to be led by their hard hearts, ending in their final consumption. The Lord is the one who says, "Vengeance is mine. The Lord is the one who says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified, for the Lord your God goes before you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." And it is the Lord who ultimately fights our battles for us, asking that we are only to be still as we place our trust in Him. For the daughter, son, mother, father, sibling, grandmother, grandfather, preacher, servant, husband, wife, or child, manager, employee, teacher, student, doctor, nurse, patient, president, authority, politician, artist, singer, musician, or any person that is going through any storm today, mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. It is God who has the ability to sustain you, love you, and protect you perfectly. You might wonder if the current situation you are in or the present trial before you will ever end. You might wonder if the world has gave up on you and that there is nobody in life who will fight for you. You might wonder if the road you took is the road of mistake, regret, grief, loneliness, and sadness. You might have been feeling pushed lately in the circumstances you are in to doubt God and even believe that He exists. But it is a fact that you are alive right now. You woke up this morning and that there is purpose in today, that God ultimately sees you wherever you are. It is God that ultimately created you, fashioned you, gave you purpose, and who chose you to be a part of His plan today, to know His love, to know that you are fully known in Him, and to know that ultimately Jesus died for you on the cross and rose on the third day, so that you could be saved from the final destruction of this world and live victoriously, redeemed, and resurrected in life in Him. He gives you breath today to make that your decision and to beckon you, call you, and lead you by His love. He says, "The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." What will be the decision you make today?